It's 6 p.m. on the 71st National Liberation Day here in Korea. Welcome to our newscast. I'm Daniel Che. Let us begin with the headlines. President Park Geun-hye addressed the nation on this Liberation Day and highlighted Korea's can-do spirit, which she says has and will help overcome daunting odds. Korean lawmakers pay a visit to Dokdo. The first such a trip in 3 years comes in response to Japan's latest claims to the Korean territory. In sports, the Korean women's volleyball team secures a spot in the Elite Eight in the Olympics, while the men's table tennis squad cruises to a semifinals berth, and sprinter Usain Bolt doesn't disappoint in the tracks. To mark the anniversary of Korea's liberation from Japan's colonial rule, President Park Geun-hye sent a strong message of hope to the nation. She also touched on urgent economic issues and North Korean threats. Song Ji-sun starts us off with the president's Liberation Day address.
President Park highlighted Koreans' can-do spirit, which she said has taken the country to where it is now after overcoming all the odds over the past 7 decades. After all, Korea has gone from being a country with a per GDP capita of just $67 to the world's 11th largest economy. In her Liberation Day speech on Monday, President Park also said Korea can once again tackle outstanding challenges through reforms and new growth engines.
우리는 해낼 수 있는 저력을 갖고 있습니다. 할 수 있다는 신념과 긍지를 토대로 우리 앞에 놓여 있는 변화와 개혁의 과제를 완수해내고 다시 한번 힘차게 도약의 미래로 나아갑시다.
The president also called on Pyongyang to fulfill its role and responsibility in the international community and urged the North to immediately stop developing weapons of mass destruction, end its nuclear program, and halt its provocations.
진정한 광복은 8천만 민족 모두가 자유와 인권을 누리며 더 이상 이산의 아픔과 고통이 없는 통일 대한민국을 만드는 것이고 그것이 우리에게 주어진 역사적 과업이라고 믿습니다.
President Park invited Pyongyang to join Seoul's efforts toward unification, saying it will provide North Koreans with equal opportunities and the right to pursue happiness. She also noted that Seoul will provide a path to peace and mutual prosperity should Pyongyang make the right choice. Song Ji-sun, Arirang News.
Throughout the country, Koreans celebrated National Liberation Day by joining in a wide range of ceremonies and events. In Cheonan, the Independence Hall of Korea, which stores the history of Korea's liberation movement, hosted a special performance by the Korean Army Honor Guard, as well as an air show by the high-flying Black Eagles of the Korean Air Force. In Busan, the students of Shindok Middle School and their parents gave a flash mob performance to show their affection for the Korean national flag, the Taegukgi. And over in Dokdo, Taekwondo practitioners from the World Taekwondo Headquarters, or Gukgiwon, showcased Korea's best martial artistry with an exclusive exhibition. And rival party lawmakers also marked Liberation Day with different events. Our Kim Young-gil has a rundown of their activities.
10 ruling and opposition party lawmakers traveled to Korea's easternmost islets of Dokdo on Monday to mark the 71st anniversary of Liberation Day. The delegation, headed by ruling Saenuri Party lawmaker Da Kyung-won, visited Dokdo to give words of encouragement to the security guards stationed there and to inspect the facilities. It is the first trip by Korean lawmakers since 2013, when another group made the trip.
No one can deny that Dokdo is our sovereign territory. Japan's preposterous claims only toughen our resolve.
The visit comes despite a formal protest from Japan's foreign ministry and its embassy in Seoul. Tokyo's chief cabinet secretary Yoshihide Suga expressed regret about the lawmakers' visit to Dokdo on Monday.
It's completely natural for South Korean parliamentarians to visit Dokdo. It's South Korean territory, and it's disrespectful for the Japanese Foreign Ministry to tell us not to go.
In light of Japan's latest claim to Dokdo earlier this month, Seoul's foreign ministry said it again made clear to Tokyo that Dokdo is Korea's territory geographically, historically, and by international law. Back in the capital city, the leaders of Korea's 4 main political parties attended a Liberation Day ceremony at the Sejong Center for the Performing Arts in Seoul. Kim Young-gil, Arirang News.
Today also marks the anniversary of Japan's surrender in World War II. Some Japanese politicians chose to mark the occasion by paying their respects to the controversial Yasukuni Shrine, honoring Class A war criminals. Park Ji-won has more on that and the Korean government's response.
Marking the 71st anniversary of Japan's surrender in World War II, Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe sent a ritual donation to the controversial Yasukuni Shrine instead of visiting in person. The shrine honors Japan's war dead, including more than a dozen Class A war criminals. It's the fourth straight year Abe has decided to stay away on this anniversary, choosing instead to send donations. However, dozens of Japanese politicians and lawmakers paid their respects at the shrine during the day. Japan's Deputy Chief Cabinet Secretary Goichi Hagiuda was one of them, and Japan's Reconstruction Minister Masahiro Imamura paid a visit last Thursday. The Korean government expressed deep concern and regret over both the visits and Abe's donations. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Jo Jun-hyuk urged Japanese politicians to sincerely reflect on history and act upon their reflections to earn the trust of neighboring countries. Meanwhile, Japanese Emperor Akihito and Prime Minister Shinzo Abe both spoke at a memorial service marking the 71-year anniversary of the end of World War II. Emperor Akihito expressed deep remorse over the past World War, saying he hopes the ravages of war will never be repeated.
When I look back on the sufferings and tribulations of the past, I cannot help but bear in mind the feelings of deep remorse.
Prime Minister Shinzo Abe also said he will do his best to never repeat the atrocities of war, but he did not mention Japan's actions during wartime, nor did he express regret or apologize to the victims.
I will do my best to never repeat the atrocities of war, to reflect on history and contribute to the peace and prosperity of the world, so that people can live with peace of mind.
On this day back in 1945, Japan declared its surrender, which ended the Second World War, but the psychological trauma and physical damage to neighboring countries, including Korea and China, still run deep, even more than 7 decades later. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
South Korea's Kim Hyun-woo won a dramatic bronze in wrestling when many feel he more than deserved the gold. The women's volleyball and men's table tennis squad are cruising their way to a golden quest. Usain Bolt continues to wow fans with his awesome performance. For all the action from day 9 in Rio, let's turn to our Kwon Jang-ho.
There were tears of disappointment and expressions of delight in Sunday's Olympic action. Team Korea's Kim Hyun-woo beat his Croatian opponent to win a bronze medal in the men's 75-kilogram wrestling. But even so, Kim was less than thrilled. Earlier in the round of 16, Kim was facing Roman Vlaslov of Russia and losing 6-3 when Kim pulled a throw that was awarded 2 points by the judges. Kim's coaches appealed the decision, saying he should have received a full 4 points. But the claim was dismissed and Kim lost the round 7-5. But even though Kim wasn't able to bring home the gold on Liberation Day as he'd hoped, his fellow countrymen applauded his efforts, with some fans calling the medal a golden bronze. Team Korea also saw some good results in the volleyball and table tennis. In women's volleyball, Korea defeated Cameroon 3-0 to seal its place in the quarterfinals. And the men's team table tennis, Korea also secured its place in the semis by beating Sweden 3-1. Also on Sunday, Usain Bolt proved he's still the fastest sprinter on earth by becoming the first athlete to claim 3 consecutive golds in the men's 100 meters. He's now looking to complete a triple of golds by retaining his 3rd consecutive titles in the 200 meters and the 100 meter relay as well. Kwon Jang-ho, Arirang News.
Koreans work the second longest hours in the OECD compared to other member countries. Oh Soo-young updates us on Korea's status, which sees its workforce unproductively burn the midnight oil with very little rewards.
Koreans work the second longest hours in the OECD according to recent data, and the ranking remains unchanged from a year ago. The average worker put in 8 hours a day and 22 days a month for 2,113 hours last year. That's almost 350 more hours than their peers in other OECD countries, or 43 extra days. Germans enjoyed the shortest hours last year, spending 1,371 hours at work. The Dutch came second with just over 1,400 hours. Despite the hard work, it seems the extra hours haven't paid off for workers in Korea. Koreans' annual real income based on purchasing power parity amounted to roughly $33,000 last year, falling short of the OECD average of $41,000. Split by the hour, the paycheck comes down to $15.67. That's about half of what their American and German counterparts earn, and 2/3 of the OECD average of $23.36. The only country with longer working hours than Korea and a lower average income was Mexico, with more than 2,200 hours a year and under $15,000 in income. The average work hours in Korea have gradually been decreasing over the years, down almost 240 hours from 10 years ago. But it looks like there's still a lot of catching up to do. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
Staying in the nation, many joyous events and parades were held across the country to celebrate Liberation Day, but there was one place where the mood was more somber. Kim Hye-sung takes us to Seodaemun prison, which was in operation during Japan's colonial rule, where visitors reflected on the meaning of independence.
The feet of Korean independence activists were printed at a ceremony on Sunday at Seodaemun Prison History Hall to commemorate their spirit of perseverance and patriotism. The prison-turned-museum also offered several activities for both children and adults to engage more people in remembering the legacies of Korean independence activists and to help them reflect on the meaning of Liberation Day. In the recreated prison, visitors can find trial records and documents on over 60,000 Korean independence activists who were imprisoned here back then. Visitors can also explore the old jail cells, torture chambers, and execution rooms where they were held. After seeing the jail, a symbol of Korea's resistance against Japan's 35-year colonial rule, children learned the story of a well-known independence activist, An Jung-geun, through a play. Considered a national hero, An is known for assassinating a 4-time Prime Minister of Japan and the first resident governor of Japanese-run Korea, Ito Hirobumi, in 1909, which helped boost the Korean people's aspirations and desire for independence. After watching the play, the children take time to write a letter to An.
I really want to thank our independence activists. Coming here made me think more about our country and how precious the Korean language is.
To lighten up the solemn atmosphere, children can also enjoy other activities like face printing and making a mug. And finally, in the highlight of the event, a flash mob performs with patterned umbrellas using the Korean national flag, taegukgi, and dances to the Korean folk song Arirang. As the colors blue, white, red, and black create waves, they also seem to connect Korea's past and present, the old and the young, in a celebration of the country's liberation. Kim Hye-sung, Arirang News.
Korea's Dokdo boasts untapped natural resources and ample fishing waters, not to mention natural beauty, but there's much more to the islets than meets the eye. Lee Ji-won takes us to there, which also regained its independence on this Liberation Day.
Dokdo Island, where Korea sees the first morning light and where untold environmental resources await their use by the nation. This is Korea's easternmost territory. To get there, we drove to Bukho Port, where we boarded a ferry to Ulleungdo Island. From there, another vessel carried us to Dokdo. Anyone can visit as long as the weather cooperates.
And finally, after some 5-hour cruise rides, we have finally landed on Korea's easternmost island of Dokdo. We were lucky that the waves were calm and the weather was nice enough for the boat to set sail today.
Dokdo actually consists of two islets, Dongdo and Seodo. While the western islet Seodo is not open to visitors, the eastern one, Dokdo, is and has been since 2005. Since then, the number of visitors has risen consistently.
We wanted to visit our country's easternmost territory. We also wanted to show our support for the police guards who defend Dokdo from Japan.
Japan has claimed Dokdo for decades. In its annual defense white paper released earlier this month, Japan once again describes the island as its sovereign territory, using the Japanese name Takeshima for a 12th straight year. But Dokdo has been Korean territory for 1,500 years, though the earliest historical documents in existence date back 872 years. And Japan itself explained Korea's sovereignty over Dokdo in a Japanese document from 1870 called the Secret Mission Report on Joseon, using an older name for Korea. It was only when Japan colonized Korea that it took control of Korean territory, and Dokdo was no exception. After surrendering in World War II, Japan returned Korea's independence and the annexed islands on this day, August 15, 1945. Currently, there are some 40 police guards from Gyeongbuk Provincial Police Agency stationed on Dokdo. The guards stay on the island for 50 days in rotation. They greet visitors and ensure their safety, but most importantly, they protect the nation's territorial integrity.
Regions involved in territorial disputes and conflict are protected by soldiers, but Dokdo is not a region of dispute. It's Korean territory, so it's guarded by us, police, whose main duty is to protect the safety and property of the public.
Dokdo, Korea's easternmost island, is also celebrating its 71st year of independence from Japan's 35 years of colonial rule today, on Liberation Day. 이지원, Arirang News, Dokdo Island, Korea.
Before we go to some traffic updates, if you're driving back to Seoul after the 3-day holiday weekend, you can expect a rather slow trip. Now, traffic on the nation's expressways heading to the capital hit a peak at around 3 p.m. and has since been almost at a standstill. As of 6 p.m., the estimated travel time from Gangneung is 2 hours and 20 minutes. From Busan, about 4.5 hours. Northbound traffic on the highways is expected to ease at around 10 p.m. Transportation authorities expect around 500,000 vehicles to hit the road on the way back to Seoul on Monday. And that concludes our newscast for this hour. As always, thank you for watching.